Hello, it's George Lees again. I'm very upset about stuff that I've learned about Gallipoli in the last hour, and it is vicious. I've told you about the culling of the troops. I didn't realise there were French troops involved there as well. It is a massive massacre. Winston Churchill was forced into resignation for shame, but they thought nothing of bringing him back into the power base for World War II. And the jokes that take you into Mrs. Doyle in the Father Ted comedies and the false history that is presented on the documentary channels, it has brought tears to my eyes all afternoon. The clouds have been passing over in massive black clouds, but I'm committed to telling the story of Bill Clinton and the modernised frauds and genocides in other people's countries. Yeah, it continues unabated, and I'm desperately keen to get that new news out. It is ever so tragic. Right then, so we left off with a profiling of Bill Clinton's elite business interests, and I've shown you already in video 1 on Clinton the interlocks to very elite families like Walmarts and the families that own Walmarts, and to companies that and to elite billionaires like the families that are the covered by the launch of the puppets called the Britney Spears and the crikey Moses, Britney Spears and the Smurfs. So the Smurfette family is a filthy rich Irish dynasty in the American trading sector. They too have other cover-ups. So that's what I told you about this morning. We've not gotten the Walton family are the super rich family that run Walmarts. The Schneiders are a family. These are only 3 or 4 arbitrarily selected people that are listed in the massive lists of people that interlock with Clinton global fraud. It's called actually the William Jefferson Clinton's foundations, okay? The Clinton Global Initiative. They're involved in healthcare, they're involved in education, they're involved in geopolitical manipulation, but they're all involved in a scam called the White Board scam, and it ties in the people that are actually the Zionists that make the Mr. Bean jokes about Gallipoli. Yeah, that's the Mr. Bean launching the London Olympics. The films that were made about Chariots of Fire are about English, British, Scottish, Irish, pan-European mercenary armies. All of them are sent to their deaths in their millions without any insight in the participating families. So we were profiling this list. So there's the tabs that we've covered. The Britneys is the launch of the Smurfs, and that also is the launch of ecological banks in Paris. I forget the name of them, but look at the video I've made just before that one and you will see. Let's have a look at what the bank was for Britney, because it's really sad that the world is run this way as a joke, entirely for profit, and this is $1 trillion money stream. So you've got banks like the Petrofigas Bank, Gaz de France, and I've told you all about the launch of ELF in the Algerian region, and it is tragic that it goes undetected by the ordinary people. That's not the name of the bank that Britney is associated with. Let's see if I can find that further up. There it is, the Bank Solfia. If you watch Britney prancing around with her kids and the Smurfs in the story about the Smurfs yeah, which is launched as a fairy story for the kids, like almost all of the nursery rhymes and fairy stories I'm now aware of. I can explain many of them, and most of them are related to the piezo fraud, but this one is just about the global warming, which is an extension of the piezo fraud through the El Nino scandal. Yet they are making profits now in vast numbers of these companies. So this is about creating buildings that are ecologically good at energy preservation. It may be important, but none of it is related to the consumption of carbon as it's portrayed. All of that, all of the extreme weather patterns that we get are acts of God because of the deviant and genocidal human behaviours. Okay, and the peer pressure drives all of this along. So let's have a look at these tabs again. So we've got a summary of Lord Putnam's companies, 9 companies that take you into education, and the white people on the boards, even although they're educating Africa and the black people down there who never get a life. Okay, we've covered all the ground. Look at my earlier videos. We've got the filthy rich people that get the Smurfs to cover up their wealth. The Snyders are pharma and munitions profiteers, different dynasties, different continents, but all at the trough. The Farsi thing is the launch of the connection between the Putnam ecological companies in Africa and the educational companies in Africa, with the Aryan master race on the white board. Yeah, that's the directors, and that is the link of the Farsi and the Mo Farah joke at the Olympics. The Clinton Global, we've just beginning to profile as I ended the last video, and people that have been in close contact with me who are statisticians like Klaus Moser, but much more populist than him. This is Hans Rosling, who is Swedish, gets on front of the TV screen in those massive documentaries that are called the TED documentaries. But when somebody who's innocent like me tries to come together and stop this massive cabal of world leaders brutalizing the world and taking all its profits from all its democracies, then he drops out for fear of revelation that he is in the fascist grouping. Then you've got companies like Promethean that are launched by Putnam in Britain that go and trade in Africa, and they are trading on the London Stock Exchange, and loads of the products are just virtual products frauds. Okay, and the boards we've not yet touched on. So let's go back to Clinton Global and go down to where we left off with the profiling of the staff. It should be the Stasi, yeah, because all of them are ruthless, and this is likely to be the launch of the Kardashian programs. His name is Craig Minasian. And we think we were on him when we stopped. He looks quite thuggish, but that could be an error by me. Okay, so Craig brings a unique background in strategic communications, press secretary and director of television news in the White House for President Clinton, and on numerous presidential campaigns, including Clinton Gore 96. And I've explained to the listeners how Clinton Gore is a highway in New Zealand that runs right up and down the spine of the South Island, and I've used it many times without seeing it in any way as sinister, but I was aware of the golf courses all the way along it, and we played on some of them. Yeah, since 2005 he was worked with the Clinton Foundation, including as Director of Communications for the Clinton Global Initiative. He also worked on World Cup USA 1994 and serves on the President's Council and School of Communication and Advisory Board for the University of Miami, where the mafia work. Yeah, and they're close to Hyman Roth on adjacent Cuba, where he graduated in 1992. Okay. Quite near the University of Texas, where the biochemistry department are led by the former Pfizer drugs magnates. Isn't it fascinating how peer pressure can steal from the world at this level? Brian Mochizuki, Director of Marketing. Elsa Palanza, Director of Commitments, Middlebury College. The educational background for most of these. She then moved to Istanbul, Turkey. Yeah, that's very close to Gallipoli, and that keeps resonating in my head. And Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, multilingual, Southwest Asia and Islamic civilization. Yeah, the clouds are beginning to dip. Yeah, those are the warmongering tools. Law and diplomacy, Southwest Asia and Islamic civilization. Speaks Italian, Spanish and elementary Turkish, and has travelled extensively in North American owned Latin America, Europe, Asia and the Middle East. She likes to hike, to ski and enjoy local food every step of the way, all expenses paid. Elsa, she's got a lovely smile. Right then. Alex Reeves, Director of CGI. I have not highlighted anything for him. Commitments, CGI, America. What is that? US economic growth. Yeah, that's the US that is in the toxic debt pool. President Obama has spent more money than all of the other presidents put together. He's extended the toxic debt pool. It's the same with all of the sporting events they host. The cost of the current one is greater than all of the previous ones added together, and that's where they need people like the statisticians like Moser and Hans Rosling yeah, to fake things up. But Hans Rosling is very believable. I'm not aware of any companies he has like Moser. Moser runs his out of the House of Lords with his friend who's the humanist, yeah, and the Christian who whinges about the threats to Christian missions overseas. Yeah, that is the man who's the Chancellor at Leeds University, Melvin Bragg. A slimy little shit. I've been listening to him lecture on Radio 4 since I was a kid, and since I went to New Zealand. He sounds ever so visionary. He fails to understand why the human race cannot make that simple little step to civilization. Okay, and look where Alex Reeves was educated. Neighbouring grants from the US Department of Education in 2010. He's a native of Atlanta, where the golf is this weekend. Graduate from the University of Georgia. Relatively innocent on this board. Lisa Rickert, Director of CGI. 10 years on Wall Street. Rickert said National Director of Women's Outreach for the Kerry Edwards 2004 presidential campaign. She came to the William J. Clinton Foundation in the spring of 2005 when we were already in Iraq. She continued this work, senior member of the team that launched the Clinton Hunter Development Initiative in Malawi. Yeah, where my boy goes as a slave, has to pay all his way there and back, and then him and his friends get some major illnesses. Yeah, and it is totally shocking that those countries cannot be given the public health that we've had for 200 years already. In addition to her work at Rickert, is a member of the advisory board of St Jude's School. Yeah, the biblical joke, the Jude songs that the Beatles sing. Her bachelor's degree from Georgetown, where Barroso was trained by Henry Kissinger. Yeah, and business admin from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. They're powerful people. Bill Wetzel, Director of CGI University, a globalized presidential university. Yeah, and you know what the Americans do in their foreign policy. They've not been involved in a lot of travel, that's the citizens, but their armies are everywhere. Wetzel oversees CGI's efforts to engage university students and the higher education community in addressing some of the world's most pressing challenges. It does not say theft projects and grand larceny. This includes the annual meeting of CGIU, a junket. Yeah, and that one's for a junket for students from 300 different schools, and we've heard about those schools. We've heard about Geelong, Rupert Murdoch, Prince Charles, and the elite Arabs that go to those schools in Australia. Yeah, and this guy is tied into the New York Times, the Washington Post, This American Life. He studied sustainable development, the scamming of people in the energy frauds and in the carbon consumption joke that is El Nino, which is about the baby Jesus and the launch of the fraudulent Christianity. Yeah, that's at Columbia University's Earth Institute. And little old Norwich got the blame the other day. I should have known better that the Yanks were at the trough. Yeah, and Jim Fetzer had never heard of P.G. Wodehouse and the Empress of Blandings and all the greedy pig jokes and all the Christianity jokes that he refused to talk about even now. Heather Zachary, Director of Event Operations. Okay, all the acts of God get remunerated, get to be charitable functions, and then get to be the global Paralympics, which each one is more expensive than all of the others added together. When I returned from my interview at Otago University where I got the job, yeah, the Paralympic teams were on board my plane. It took nearly as long for that plane to get off the ground as the one that was blocked by Air Force One on my only visit to the New York airport. The JFK airport, the tragedy of the decent American president. Okay, Heather Zachary, what has she done? Oh yeah, here we go. She is CGI America International, and she's programming departments to make A Wish Foundation and the Jewish Guild for the Blind Children's Vision Health Initiative, where she managed special events and event production, teleconvenings and online resource databases. Now there are a lot of blind people in Israel, and I worked with some of them. They were working on using scorpion venoms as treatments for illnesses and to turn them into pesticides. And I forget what the parasite is that turns them blind in Israel, but I now have a new theory on pathology which many of you have come aware of. Okay, Zachary received a bachelor's in Latin American Studies and Sociology from Tulane University in New Zealand, where the land grabs and the healthcare frauds occurred in the shock doctrine book written by Naomi Klein, now a specialist in their new sector of globalised energy fraud. Okay, Louisiana, in her personal time, she devotes her efforts to assisting with programming for the Tulane Alumni Club of New York. Everything's a fickin' junket. New York American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and All Souls of New York City, where they brought down the Twin Towers, and the Gentile souls suffered badly. But I am not religious. They are not divided on the religious concept. It's totally about elites controlling the world. And when we get on to Bill Clinton's legitimacy and his marriage into the royal family through the bastard Winston Churchill, yeah, that did the Gallipoli dirty and then sired the children, yeah, by artificial insemination of Her Royal Highness the Queen Mother, the GG Joker. That's the maid from the palace, because the other person that was asked to marry the stammering king saw what her future would be like and she bailed out. Okay, like some wives do in marriages that are very close to me. Okay, right then, So what we'll do now, that's the board, and you can see it, it's the clintonfoundation.org and Clinton.global initiative about us leadership team. Okay, and that is introduced that man that I'd never heard of at the top of the list, and he is a massive power broker, and I still had never heard of him until I read his profile a couple of days ago. Okay, Ed Hughes, I think we missed him. This is him. Robert S. Harrison. Yeah, the name Harris keeps cropping up because of the Arian connection and because of the war crimes inquest at Nuremberg. Okay, I've only learned about that in the last 3 weeks. It's massive, and congratulations to Born Leisure, whose man yesterday won the Grand National. It's really good that the relatively decent people that are not prepared to take our country to war now are beginning to get the rewards for that. Okay. I sometimes speak too soon. If we do end up in war, you're not going to get let off the hook this time. You're in front of the firing squad. Okay, so we've done everything, I think. Let's have a look at how the education works. I could not find the Rosling dropout flashed up on screen when I first hit the Clinton Global Foundation, and Rosling's work in the statisticians area was profiled in the little ads that came up with all of the other participants. But as soon as I saw it, I tried to find it in a still, but they would not let me capture it. Okay, so this is what the man Putnam runs, and I've shown you the whiteboards, and I've explained in the earlier video the whiteboards are a joke about the master race, and they're selling devices like that in little villages in Africa. That's the scam, that's what they tell you, but that's just for the stock market launch and the massive shareholding frauds that they run in the FTSE 100. Okay, and that's profiled a little bit across here to the right. I don't think we had time for this morning. There's the Promethean logo. The man with the Olympian fire in his hand. Headquarters Blackburn in Lancashire, and I'm aware of the former MPs for Blackpool's activities in the same sector. They run conferences in this sector, and that is and they dwell in Berlin, and they're ever so nice people, and they realise that I'm an ever so powerful fraud investigator, and they came to fish with me. It's Harold Ellison, and his missus is called, the son's name is Max, which is a giveaway to their aspirations. And they're ever so decent when they come and talk to me, and I got the biggest tip from that man that I ever got on the River Tweed. Yeah, that does not include Mr. Harris's bung for my Christmas bonus in the envelope for tax evasion reasons. That is one of the Harris's minor crimes in world history. And I've got my rebate, because everything that I earned that year was declared openly, and I got a rebate tax check from the Inland Revenue. I have still not cashed it, because I know that they try and scam me out of everything I do. Okay, Philip Rowley, Chairman, Jim Marshall, CEO. This is Promethean, Blackburn in Lancashire, to steal from the African continent and to fake up their activities on the London Stock Exchange. Revenue 205 million. That's chicken feed in Bill Clinton's empire. But you've got class flow, active inspector, active board, active table, active expression. That's computerized tables. Yeah, like little gimmicks that you find when you go to Disneyland. Operating income 29.5 million. Not many of that is actually in the form of products. Oh shit. Ooh. Number of employees 650. Our ultimate purpose is to motivate the student to learn. Website prometheanworld.co.com. Okay, so that is the Chariots of Fire's Joker's initiatives in education. He was my Chancellor at Sunderland University. His name is Putnam, and everything he does is a crime and a joke against the world's people and its history, which is why I'm so upset about Gallipoli again. Yeah, right then. And so I think I showed you in the earlier video how these guys flow everything onto the stock market. So that's the name and code is PRW on the stock market flotation, and there is the Promethean statistics on the GBX and the USD. Yeah, Atlanta and up in Lancashire. Yeah, right in the epicenter of the London Stock Exchange, and we've told you how that interlocks with the people who are heads of the European Central Bank and their children or their wives. That's the females. Yeah, in the family. Right then, let's now go to Clinton Global and have a look at just the Wikipedia profile. And the most interesting bit of all is to find out about those families in America that I've never heard of before, that are all on the Forbes rich list, and all of them participate in this. So we could go to the bottom first and see what I'm talking about, because it's, yeah, we have done that. Okay, so let's go to the bottom before I profile their global activities from the top down. Okay, these are just the adjunct financial institutions, charities and foundations that are tied to them. Okay, so there, shortly after Hurricane, so here's the scams of Hurricane Katrina in the South Pacific in 2005, also written about by George W. Bush. Now I've highlighted this in green because it's the global warming scam. Okay, as soon as that's over with, as soon as they've dispossessed the locals of their beach and their treasures, and I told you the story in earlier videos about how the house I bought in Dunedin was owned by a Red Cross magnate, yeah, and he had in the upstairs room that became my gym, it became our table tennis place and my library, yeah, it contained massive African treasures that filled the room. Phenomenal African treasures, yet that you would not see in an auction house in Britain, because they were just stripped out of the countries that he had last been working of. When they had the hurricane on the South Pacific shoreline, he had to go there, and they asset stripped the land and the ownership of all of the beaches that are now owned by the G8 countries with massive elite hotels on them. And the people get sent to internment camps and they have no future at all. That was their country, and it's now George W. Bush's and Tony Blair's, which is why Tony Blair has bailed out for panic reasons in the last few months, because he knows that there are a few people coming relentlessly after him with the truth that he is a genocidal murderer. Okay? And he's doing okay in the lumberjack context too. Yeah, he trades as Linton Blair in that sector. That's one of the IDs that we've become aware of for him. There will be many more, and they will be found out in the course of world history. Okay, so the Bush, Clinton, Katrina Fund. Can you see how they do it under the new green label? It looks as if it's yellow, but that's yellow, that's green. My camera is not really a very sophisticated instrument, which is why I don't sell it to the sub-Saharan Africans. Okay, and it's worth trillions. Yeah, the net worth of all of these listings. So let's just go down the footnotes on this web page and see what it is. Clinton Global. So that's the top of the page. It's a bugger. Right then, Greenspun. Now, so the Smurf story is quite a minor story in, you know, the fact that the Irish family involved, the Smurfits, is not really worth all that much, but only one member of their family is profiled. So here we've got the list of all of the people that interlock with the various tiers of the Clinton Foundation, and they're ranked by input of the cash. And there's the other issue that Naomi Klein featured in her book. That's the Haiti earthquakes. Some of my family visited that, visited that country, and they now work in globalised sport, and they're doing okay, thank you, and it is relatively innocent, and I wish them well. But my sister isn't speaking to me, as we've seen in the recent videos. Okay, so the 2010 Haiti earthquake, that's the follow-up from the massive tsunami in 2005, and in they go, and everything belongs to them. And the massive acts of God become something that we need to doctor in our consumption of energy projects. And when they have the summits in South Africa, only the elite nations go there. They make a new set of pledges, and none of them do the honour. Yeah, it's just about raking in the money, and it will become a tax on breathing really soon. Yeah, so Naomi Klein covered that loyally, as she was funded to do by George Bush, and she begins to focus on the calamitous scam that is the catching project of global warming. Okay, right then. Let's go down now the list of companies and affiliates to the foundation that Bill Clinton runs. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, Unitaid, Centenary Group International, Frank Giustra. Now look at my website for Frank Giustra. That's spelled Giustra. He's a massive fraudster in league with Clinton, and gets Clinton elected now and again, and takes a massive bung for that. He also manipulates the future of people in the university sector, and he holds them to ransom to teach his doctrine of stealing from the world. Yet they're not allowed to do things that liberate people and inform them of the way the world is run. They're run as slaves to his funding streams, which are entirely out of the geopolitical manipulation that the presidency has now got access to, which is why Obama is such a batard, because everything that he does is reneges on everything that he was given the Peace Prize for. And his economic mastery of stealing from the people has them in a bigger debt pool than they've ever been in world history. Okay, AusAid, Stephen L. Bing. Yeah, that is sinister. That's the war bonds name again. Okay. The Radcliffe Foundation. Now if you look on these, they will be full of things that are covered up by Walt Disney, by Hanna-Barbera, by the operatic sector, by ever so many sports people, and all of it is the way that they cover their tracks, and those are criminal tracts right at the head of society. Obama is illegitimate, he's not an American citizen. Bill Clinton is the half-brother of Queen Elizabeth II, and Winston Churchill's his dad. Okay, right then. Stephen L. Bing, Co-Presida, Secretariado Técnico, Fred Eichner, and remember this is globalized, it's not just America. Fred Eichner, Tom Golisano. Now when you click on those, there will be world famous names and shows on the telly that emerge. The Hunter Foundation, that is the Scottish man, that's the man that helped to do the devolution project with Davy Steele, yeah, and all of the Scottish Parliament building going 10 times over budget. All of them run trusts, none of them pay any tax. That's the government of Norway, the quislings in wartime, yeah, that are the joke about Gimli in the Lord of the Rings. And the government of Norway arrange a few shootings when the socialists are having groupings. But believe that if you like, the terrorist was in 2 places on the same day. That's Breivik with the Freemasonic pinnies hanging around his his abdomen, yeah, and with a big number of double chins, that as he enters into a massive media diversion like we had with the Leveson inquiry, he gets a life in prison. But he comes into Greg Hallett's Australasian stories as well, okay? Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, yeah, the funders for the terror on 9/11, yeah, but the thinkers are the Jews, according to the world's leading analysts in this sector. As long as the money stream is not investigated, it does not give a monkey's about what's happening in the terror sector or the false news sector. Yeah, the detonation of those buildings was uncontestable, but I don't want to get into that. There's so many people who dedicate their lives to it. This is about the globalized construction of the spider's web that is business fraud everywhere, launched out of Chicago by, I forget the name of the professor at the business school there, but all of it is just a massive tragedy for the human race. And the schools that should be funded by the state instead of these gimmicks, yeah, are totally busted for funds, yeah, which is why they beg for cash in Lord Sainsbury's supermarket now. It's absolutely twisted. Theodore W. Waite with 2 T's on the end. Yeah, relatively small amounts of money donated in inverted commas. And I mentioned the links to the Red Nose Day, and they know it's Christmas charities in the UK this morning. Haim Sabam, the Sabam family, Michael Schumacher, maybe working now on Formula 1 headache cures. Nobody gets any news about their tragedies. The Wasserman Foundation, S. Daniel Abraham, founder of Slim Fast, 5 million threshold, we're now below. 100 women in hedge funds. I had Helen Clark circulate in my town in a car the other day. Yeah, Helen Clark is in one of the 100 most powerful women in the Forbes listings. She had to bail out of her job at the UN Development Agency because she'd stolen millions of dollars from it already, and Greg Hallett and I exposed that, and we published it all online. She's back in New Zealand, it's alleged, and she gets young teenagers to run her website, and they're barely capable of spelling complex words like Abraham, yeah, who led the 12 tribes into these projects, like the Christians did. Yet they're all in the same team. No matter what John Patterson would have you believe in the little shallow debate he tried to engage me in the other day to save the Christians from the Jews. Absolute return for the kids. The ARC project, Mohammed Al-Amoudi, Altel Corporation. When I looked up the family that became the Smurfs joke, I'd never heard of them. Click on these blue hyperlinks on the page that is Clinton Global, and you will see in Wikipedia what is the basis for all those TV programs that you've watched for decades but never found them very enlightening. It's amazing. The money they spend on the cover-ups could have society back to prosperity. Okay, Altel Corporation, Nasser Al-Rashid, Smith and Elizabeth Frawley Bagley, Shall we have a little play with it? No, I'd better save the time. I'll do it later on in the week, and when I come up with more Smurf-like secrets, I'll let you know. The Eli and Eddie, the Broad Foundation, Richard Caring. Okay, Gilbert R. Shaguri, City Foundation, did not give in 2009. Clinton Giustra, Sustainable Growth Initiative, his interests are in uranium. That's the nuclear pile, yeah? And all of the stories that I've told you and retold about Greg Hallett and the heavy water out of New Zealand and out of Norway and out of South Africa, yeah, it is tragic. And what they've done up there in Canada, where Giustra prevails, is they've built the tar sands, and all of the oil that they actually have is a massive ecological disaster. And these guys claim that they are working on that. When they did the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, it's just a cover-up. And the man that was the head of the organisation involved in that spill, as a false news diversion from his real crimes, is now on the directorate with Tony Blair of the Kurdistani oil companies. And that is the Air Force One joke. And it was Air Force One that held me up in New York for 3 hours when Bill Clinton was in board and in office. Victor P. Dadel, so that's the Sustainable Growth Initiative, Canada. Please do not mention the tar sands and all of the cancers that the residual indigenous Indians are imposed as they get the social security right next door in a place that is ecologically a battle zone, and it will be very difficult to restore. Okay, Victor P. Dadele, the Victor Philip Dadele Charitable Foundation, Robert Disbrow, these are mysterious names to me. Dubai Foundation did not give in 2009. That's Dubai, where George W. Bush and Michael Ellis Moore are involved in the massive shipping scandals. And the man that told me about the Melrose rugby tournament used to work in that sector. He's a really decent bloke. He's one of the most inspiring rugby players I ever played with, and I'm delighted that he's talking to me again. And he understands the shame of allowing a district side to win the sevens at Melrose. Yeah, that's all the local talent go to Glasgow, and some of the Glasgow companies and the Glasgow ships are used in the massacres at Gallipoli as well. The elites go there in the royal yachts, and they never get in front of a bullet. Okay, so that's the Dubai Foundation. The Borders College is registered there. Elton John AIDS Foundation, you've heard of them. I used to go with my wife to Woburn, where there were AIDS in the monkey community, and that's how the AIDS got into Africa, because they're planted there, and it's totally twisted. And the man who told me the compassionate stories about that is a profiteer in the Church of Scotland sector. That's my uncle Gilbert Curry. The name Gilbert is associated with profiteering in the Rothschild family, and the name Curry is associated with all sorts of deviance in the speculative society of Edinburgh. And he lived in Hamilton where the Hamiltons run the Park Hotels, and he's part of the Park Hotel bus dynasty. Yeah, and that is the brutalisation of Africa again, because it's Mungo Park out of Selkirk, where the BBC Selkirk studios are, and where Kev Drummond and Alistair Moffat run the frauds in Scotland. Elton John AIDS Foundation out of Watford. My wife used to go and support them. Yeah, and she was the scorer for Sussex County Cricket Club and Imran Khan's initiatives. Entergy, that's the joke about the trees and the crucifix again. Mr. Issam M. Fares and the Wedge Foundation. The launch of the Wedges. Wallace W. Fowler, elite dynasty in the Chicken Run movie made by the successors of Walt Disney. and all of the jokes that my brother-in-law laughed at about those movies involving, I forget what the name of the characters were, the man and his little dog. They went to the moon and the cooker was landed on the moon before them. Yeah, everything is ever so funny and is there entirely to cover up the financial crimes of our world leaders. James R. Greenbaum Family Jr. Family Foundation, Mala Gonkar Goa Nkar Harman. Don't know what the ethnicity of that person is, or whether it's 3 people. Click on the links, it will stun you. And I love Britney's music, and I don't know whether or not she understands what she does for them, but it would be really good if the decent musicians could come out and shame them. Robert L. Johnson, Howard and Michelle Kessler, Michael and Jenna King, Lucas Lundin, Mac AIDS Fund, the Macaire Jewish Angels jokes. The Macaire is part of the 6 Jewish angels that we named and made a video about the other day, and that's the Scottish coastline with the bogs behind it. Also laughed at in the Lord of the Rings. Open society. Oh, and here we've got the Mackay law enforcement sector. Yeah, I did not know that there was a massive financial dynasty called Mackay. I'll have to have a look at that, but very prudently they have not hyperlinked it. I'm going to have to work a little bit. Lakshmi N. Mittal makes all his money and lives in Britain, but he's an Indian. Yeah. On the Forbes rich list, like all of these people, Open Society Institute, Victor Pinchuk. I forget what the name of the little creature is that they have in America, but all of it is just covered up in that shallow way. Presidential Inaugural Committee, so you can get a bung to become the president for a second time in office. Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund. Isn't that funny? They can top them and then profit from them. The Al Nahyan family of the United Arab Emirates. Paul Reynolds, I mentioned Mammy Ripper Reynolds. He was a rustic farmer and he used to shoot rabbits off the back of his off-roader. And if you shoot rabbits in Hertfordshire, then that's a really courageous thing to do, because the rabbit is the icon for the fascists. So good luck on you, Ripper Reynolds, if you're still breathing. I owe you a pint. Robertson Foundation, that's the black man on the jam jar joke, and all of the massive fund holders at the HSBC and the New World Order banks. Can you see it's all in the name? The rubber, the cross and the sun, and the foundation is launched. Website only since the 1950s, and there we could click on that and we can see the basis for that massive financial empire. Bernard L. Schwartz, Walter H. Shorenstein, Arnold H. Simon, Bren and Melvin Simon, Simon and Garfunkel. They sing dutifully about everything they're asked to do. The sound of silence after JFK was silenced, and all of it shows you the keep right signs and the fly straight ahead and keep right music that take us into war again and again. And Bing Crosby thinks it's really funny. Amar Singh, Michael Smurfit. So that's what I clicked on last night, because I knew that Britney has a laugh about the Smurfs, but I did not understand it. It takes you to the eco banks through Britney's linkage and our videos, and that is the name of the bank that I showed you earlier on, which is this hyperlink here. Harold Schneider, pharma magnate, New York. State of Kuwait, State of Qatar. These are the people that are involved in the nuclear weapons trading, so that America cannot threaten them, and they've got an extinction threat, so they can fight back by getting rid of the world's people all over the globe. Isn't that clever? Only people like George W. Bush and Obama could condone that. Tony Blair condones that, And David Cameron was involved in the trading of those weapons when he was just a boy, or he was a very, very young man in his 20s. Yeah, he's now matured to become a responsible person, which is why I'm going to insist on talking to him before he's allowed to bail out and leave it to some genocidal character like Blair, who might well push the button. Sterling Stamos Capital Management, the Streisand Foundation. Have you heard of the Streisands in a pop singer context? Suzlon Energy, Swiss reinsurance company scam. Oh, sorry, it does not say scams. Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office. The Alex Foundation, the Government of Brunei, Dar es Salaam, the Howard Gilman Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. Yeah, they're the ones that fell out with the elites in Monaco when Peter Eyre kicked in. And the Eyres are also involved in Gallipoli. They're involved in the printing of the Christian Bible after it was translated and broken up into the Church of Scotland and the Church of England, so we could be perpetually arguing the toss with each other, even in the marital sector. Yeah, the Christian oath is a total fraud, because there is no Christ. Yeah, and I will not succumb to the threats of it was raining all morning and everybody is on my case in the marital sector. Yeah, everybody is preaching about marital fidelity and the things you need to do in your home. Yeah, and everybody is talking up Jesus like crazy. Yeah. The Howard Gilman Foundation. But today, the Church of Scotland, we're talking about people who are doubting about the religious dogma. That's Thomas and Miss Tom, the solicitor again, and the Thompsons that rule Britannia. It's all the same joke, but I don't understand why St John's changed its name to Kelso North, which is not in the biblical text to my knowledge. Like Edom. The Roy and Christine Sturgis Charitable and Educational Trust. Can you see that controlling the minds and controlling the thought stream is vitally important in controlling the masses and the taxpayers and the supporters and the opposition? There is no opposition in politics now. They're all in the same money stream. The Sydney E. Frank Foundation, the Sultanate of Oman, the Walmart Foundation. That is the company called the Waltons, which launches the TV program TG Holdings, the Walton Family Foundation. Many billionaires, the Waltons. Yet that's a whole website or PDF dedicated to them. Walmarts crashed for panic. I visited Walmarts. It was right next door in Washington to the Watergate building. Yeah, but that is not Clinton. That is the genocidal man that brutalised the South Pacific for its narcotics and launched the Coca-Cola icons, which were all over some of these pages when I looked at them yesterday. Okay, the Coca-Cola plants were where they put the narcotics into their containers before them sent them back to the West, to Marseille for processing, and then into Latin America, into Florida, and into Cuba, and then into the big cities in America. So Americans globally get dismembered and are incapable of fighting crime anywhere it occurs, which is everywhere now. Thank you to the innocent policewomen for talking to me in your leisure hours. You are ever so decent, and I can see the decency shining through, and all that the local people need to do is to talk about what their bosses from London are doing to their organisation, or from fetes in Scotland, which I'm totally ashamed of. Okay, another cash band. We're down to 1 million only now. Okay, Bank of America,
one of my friends was the PA to the boss at the Bank of America in the UK. I will not give her name. She's ever so evasive now that we've made a couple of videos, and she understands how deeply I understand everybody's involvement in the cover-ups for the massive frauds against our people. AIDS Life, Malini Alles, Uber Alles, it does not say that, I just made that up. Okay, Simon P. Barcelo, Frederick Barron and Lisa Blue, Richard C. Bloom. So you've heard of him. I think he's one of the metropolitan mayors in America. Yeah, definitely on the Forbes rich list. Susie T. Buell and Mark Buell. The Sherwood Foundation, the Robin Hood joke. And at the Church of Scotland this morning, they finished off with a Germanic number on the organ, and it was played, it was by a musician called Hoodes. And that is the Hoodal joke, that is them laundering the Nazis out of World War II into Latin America. Yeah, and that is the Pope Pius XII. And when they had an art competition in the town yesterday, there were a couple of tax havens, and I nominated one of the tax havens as number 1. I can't remember what the other frauds were. Oh, the Royal Bank of Scotland was pictured in Edinburgh. I put that as 2. And I can't remember. Oh, and the picture of a pig at a trough, I put that at number 1. And I signed it off as Pope Pius XII. I doubt that anyone, maybe with the exception of the organist at the Church of Scotland this morning, understood the joke. The whole world is a crime scene, and none of the world's countries are capable of funding themselves as a result. That's the it's got ham in it joke. And Sherwood is near Nottingham, and the Nottingham MP, who's in charge of anti-Semitism globally, was also one of the team that indicted the locals in Kurdistan for the war crimes there. Yet they're in a really troubled spot now, because they're with Zahawi and with Anne Clwyd, and all of them are massive war criminals and profiteers, and their websites are just geopolitical entrepreneurial vents. But they've taken them down now for fear of execution. Cisco, Clinton Family Foundation and William J. Clinton, Confederation of Indian Industries, and that could be at the tar sands. Lewis B. Cullum, oh no, Cullman, Duke Energy Corporation, and you see the ducks involved in the Britney Spears movies with the Smurfs and all the sinister characters. Yeah, and that's what everything from, you know, the what was the big green giant that was the terror threat on the pavements when Superman had to intervene? The Hulk. Yeah, the Hulk is a cover for the Hoolises, and I think that's further up the pages. Global Artists Inc., Elena Pinchuk, Anti-AIDS Foundation, Duke Energy Corporation, so that's links to Shelton and the nuclear power. Sheldon, that's the some of the comedy programs that have been launched in the noughties. Global Artists Inc., Brian L. Greenspun, that's not Greenspan like the mayor of New York, it's Greenspun, it's not a hyperlink. Something quite sinister if it's not a hyperlink. Hewlett Packard Company, more IT links, and the links to the IT people that are able to do translations even in 1945 at Nuremberg. But we cannot have that done in the court, and you're not allowed to record anything in the court now, because they're really ashamed of everything they've done to their respective countries and to other peoples in the genocides. Here it is, the HALT International Business School, Patricia A. Hotung, ICAP Services North America, and here we've got on the right the HALT International profile, and that is likely to be the launch of the Incredible Hulk. Get plugged into the world Motto, get plugged into the world. Arthur D. Little School of Management. So Arthur D. Little, who is he? He could be of the same magnitude of the Smurfs. And Stephen J. Hodges. Hodges in the Dad's Army joke. Do you see it? Do you see how they cover it? Mane wearing in the Dad's Army joke. Trillions at the bank. Launched out of Boston, San Francisco, USA, London, UK, Dubai, like Michael Ellis Moore, UAE, Shanghai, China, like Lord Patton, New York, USA, Miami, USA. Affiliations: New England Association of Schools and Colleges, NEASC, the Association of MBAs, AMBA, British Accreditation Council, HALT Edu. Yeah. And there are several actors called HALT. Some of them appear in Mozart movie. Or no, sorry, that's Hulsh. And that man giggles a bit like me when he makes his miraculous music and is interned in the pauper's grave. Okay, so that is the profile of the affiliated institutions, or some of them, over the £1 million limit rather. Okay, and look at all of the links to presidential campaigns for other people and all over the world, and the links to the fraudulent press, and all of it is involved in relatively trivial scandals like Watergate, but the war crimes are never mentioned by anyone but me and a few of the investigative journalists. But they do not really touch on the linkage to the Rothschilds that I am dubbing on in every video I make. Yeah, and the Rothschilds are deeply involved in those issues that are upsetting me about Gallipoli, and all of that is coming out in the next few days unless they take me down. Right then, let's go to the top and work our way down. So that's just the affiliated institutions. It's absolutely massive, and the links to global warming is a massive fraud against the world's dimwits, but they're none the wiser. Okay, although the body double for Monica Lewinsky, who's now in my town and works in financial services in my town, she's really charming. She's from just to the west of Chicago. And she is really a scintillatingly intelligent person, and she openly communicates. She smiles all of the time, and I met her in Roxburgh Street on the lead up to the Duke of Roxburgh's big pad at the top with the caveman on his sign. Yeah, and she's ever so interested in how things are going, especially when Bill Clinton becomes my theme again for the day. But it is ever so decent of those people to talk to me openly and not to threaten me in any way. And our whole family is charming, and I'm delighted that the whole world is beginning to talk to me, because that's the way out of the crisis. Okay, so the Clinton Foundation, key people. He's only got one daughter, I believe, and he had a massive cardiovascular accident in 2004, and he's looked grey ever since. Okay, I wanted to get that in because he is a criminal, he's a crook, he steals from the world's people. That's why he had a near-death experience in 2004 when Tony Blair and George W. were taking the world to war against democracy's will. Okay, and Bill Clinton is the Queen's half-brother. His whole life is a fraud, and I discovered that some of the correspondents for Gallipoli are the man who made the Being There movie, yeah, Lord Mountbatten's illegitimate son, Sellers. So the Sellerses are the historians involved in writing up the false truths about Gallipoli and Winston Churchill's cowls. Yeah, they're still decent enough to say that Winston Churchill was forced into resigning because he killed so many, but I'm going to make a much more detailed video on that later today, with all the horrific images and the statistics. It is shocking, and the footage of what happened on the beachhead is just like the Tom Hanks movie about Saving Private Ryan. Just mass slaughter because they know they've got the power. Yeah, and this is the ultimate in the power base, because it's globalized. All of the presidents will have the same links. I need to go into that in a more superficial way. Yeah, but because of his link to the monarchy in England, this is particularly potent. It's Peter Sellers. Yeah, Peter is the first pope. It's a big name associated with the launch of the new thing, and the Joseph is usually the launch. Okay. Ah, shit. So, the dark clouds that accompanied all of the news yesterday and all of the sporting frauds and everything under Melrose yesterday was black as night. And so, revenue 214 million in 2012. Believe that if you like. That's an auditor's dream. Right then. Bill Clinton, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Chelsea Clinton and Donna Shalala, CEO. That man who I talked about must be a historic figure now. Employs 350 in 2013. Yeah, remember I told you about BAE Systems Limited having, what was it, 70,000 employees in 2008 before I came home. To bring people together to take on the biggest challenges of the 21st century. That's getting the gold into a secret place when you've only got a workforce of 350. Okay, and there's the website details. There he is, looking a little bit grey after the heart attack. Okay, let's just scan down. The foundation works principally through partnerships with like-minded individuals. Yeah. The mugshot concept. They don't need to give the mugshot on the business directory, and I cannot touch the Americans for anything because they don't share their secrets on the British system. Okay, there's the little rock. That's the Rock of Ages joke about the pan-religious frauds for year after year after year, and it becomes 2000 years. Yeah, New York City and Little Rock, Arkansas. So this is just the Wikipedia entry. You can read it for yourselves, but let me give it some emphasis on the particularly vicious bits. We've read out who qualifies to be members of the really elite geopolitical club if they can afford $25 million, like Frank Giustra, who owns much of Canada, and Stephen Harper, the Prime Minister, is a Jewish Lubavitcher, like George W. Bush. And Jim Fetzer has never heard of the concept. The William J. Clinton Foundation was founded in 2001 following the completion of the presidency of Bill Clinton. Okay, I'll just keep going to the highlights. In September 2005, Frank Giustra flew Clinton to Khazakstan, where the emperor killed his brother so he could remain the emperor. A lot of the parallels are with the El Cid movie, and in that, Christianity is the hero, not the villain, as part of a 3-country philanthropic tour. Everything's a junket. Nursulata Nazarbayev, for this statement you have made about opening up the social and political life of Kazakhstan. Do you now get the Air Force One movie and the concept that all of the heroes are the villains? Within 2 days of the meeting, Giustra's fledgling uranium company signed preliminary agreements giving it the right to buy into 3 uranium projects controlled by the state-owned uranium agency Kazatomprom. Yeah, Tom, the man in the pulpit in the Church of Scotland this morning, who was doubting everything about the doctrine that is spouted from their mouths. Okay. In 2006, in the months after Clinton's visit, Giustra donated 31 million to the Clinton Foundation. However, Giustra had developed deep financial links with the Khazakstan business uranium interests. There's another extinction threat for you. And now it's in the hands of what Butcher Jones would have called the fuzzy wuzzies for a laugh. Yeah? These are not our friends in the Homeland Security terror. These are people that have got the cash and are prepared to give it up to keep their power base, regardless of what happens to their brother in the shallow grave. Like King Juan Carlos. Right then, let's find another highlighted bit. Oh, and Hillary was running to be Democratic nominee for President of the United States in 2007, when I was still a prize-winning department head at the University of Otago. Yeah, commentator Matthew Iglesias wrote in a Los Angeles Times op-ed that the Clintons should make public the names of foundation donors to avoid any appearance of impropriety. So there you have another Mr. Bean, another Shipman. Yeah, Shipman was the correspondent for Iraq, Mr. Bean was the correspondent for Gallipoli, and this one is the correspondent for nuclear weapons trading and the raw materials for its manufacture, involving puppet states in Eastern Europe. Yeah, and his name is Iglesias. And then you've got the launch of 2 generations of Iglesias into the pop music sector. Please get in touch, Thora Kerr. I know you're a spirited woman and you're formidable physically and mentally, and I want to turn you onto the side of the free world. Or that might be pronounced car. Accordingly, a list of donors was released for the first time in December 2008. The list was large and included politically sensitive donors from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to Blackwater. I've got a man that meets me in the supermarket at Sainsbury's that works for Blackwater, and he's having trouble with his taxes. Anyway, thank you for everyone for coming forward and having a chat about such things and not getting me in the back of the head with a couple of bullets. That's all that needs to happen. We talk about the way out, and it's ever so simple. And the Rothschilds have nowhere to go now unless they're prepared to face the firing squad, but I would much prefer to talk the world out of its crisis, and there could be no executions doing it my way. Okay. The Foundation insisted that the disclosures would ensure that not even the appearance of a conflict of interest would exist once Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. Yeah, can you follow the logic there? I find it ever so difficult as a simple man like El Cid was portrayed as. Chelsea Clinton was taking a dominant role in the Foundation by 2011 and had a seat on its board. She also drove the organisation to get its first outside review. Lindsay moved from being CEO to being chair, largely for health reasons. Eventually, God always catches up with them, or the gods, or his elements, or whoever the Holy Spirit is, or whatever it is that underpins the pathology theory that is now becoming an obvious factor in the reluctance to tell the truth about the future of the world leaders who have succumbed to cardiovascular or coronary accidents or strokes or massive cancers. Yeah, and the people that get motor neuron disease, all of my heroes, become victims of that. Except for Justin Marshall in New Zealand, and I keep trying to get to him through the Leeds Freemasons, but I don't think I'm going to get a result because they're the Leeds Freemasons. And Justin Marshall was a wild boy, and he may not be aware of the Mars Hill Marshall joke, about the Piso family. I don't think in the village he came from that would be widely laughed at, but there are no surprises for me anymore. It was called Matora, on the river Matora, and it is a magnificent place, and it had coal seams on the bottom of the river, which I found to be extraordinary, but it was just taken for granted by those rustic people. And there was a McDonald's in the town and it had, in that tiny rural village, a massive abattoir. We have no abattoirs in Scotland's farming economy within 150 miles of my hometown, which is focused on agricultural output, and all of the politicians are traitors to their country from in every tier of government, because those are simple issues, they're easy to fix, but they fear the loss of their trickle down, and that's how it works, or fails to, globally now. In 2013, following the completion of Hillary Rodham Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State, she joined the Foundation. I wonder where she got her references from. She planned to work on issues regarding women and small children. That's they adopt them and bring them into popular culture in other people's continents so that they can become the new world leaders, as well as economic development. Accordingly, at that point, it was renamed the Bill and Hillary Chelsea Clinton Foundation. Okay. The outside review conducted by the firm of everything is an elite joke or an elite cover-up. So Simpson, we know about Mrs. Simpson from the Gettysburg region, yeah, and into the fascists all across Europe, and eventually into peaceful and sexually deviant retirement in free Paris. Thatcher and Bartlett. You know the Thatcher, and you know how simple it is to add another Christian cross in the middle. Bartlett is the name of the man that escaped with the 50 people from the prison in the Great Escape movie, which is why Steve McQueen died in his 40s, and the other Steve McQueen, the fat bastard that makes the jokes about the slavery for the black people, yet jumps off the stage like a rabbit, which is the Hitler's friend's puka joke, the Winnie the Pooh for all of the Nazi diaspora and all of Hitler's friends in 1945. That's Herr Bartlett. Yeah? Right then. So we've got a Dennis Cheng. I don't know, it could be the local restaurant owner, but I have not highlighted, so it cannot be of great significance. But as I said, I'm a simple man, which is why I'm a menace to their globalised fraud. A Washington Post inquiry into donations by foreign governments to the Clinton Foundations during the Secretary's tenure found 6 cases where such governments continued making donations at the same level they had before Clinton became Secretary, which was permissible under the agreement, and also one instance of a new donation, $500,000, from Algeria for earthquake relief in Haiti that was outside the bounds of the continuation provision and should have received a special ethics review. Now, do you remember Gordon Bowden when we were talking about Sir Archie Hamilton, Mrs. Thatcher's private secretary, being involved with a football director from Birmingham City Football Club, and how easy it was for football clubs in their transfer deals to launder money around the globe? Can you see what is happening here? This is not Birmingham, it's Algeria and the White House. Okay, I like to think big and to keep it simple and to explain it clearly. Let's look for it. Organisations such as the Clinton Foundation continue to supply anti-malarial drugs to Africa and other affected areas, according to Director Inder Singh. In 2011, more than 12 million individuals will be supplied with subsidised anti-malarial drugs. That's because they're using them as the testing victims. And with the HIV issues, all you do is you swap the treatment for the actual pathological agent, and hey bingo, you've got a result, and you've got a genocide without anybody ever noticing it, and it's all for free. Okay?